am I run the Leadership Development Center here at the Tepper School of Business, as well as the Leadership and Negotiation Academy for Women. And for those of you who are in Pittsburgh, and I know some of our students are here and some are very dispersed, and I know many of our alum who are joining all over the country, but if you know Pittsburgh, I got an alert this morning for snow showers. So there is no snow outside yet, but I was very grateful that my one warm moment of the day was the conversation with Shellye. So I'm grateful that I had this to look forward to on what is a very gloomy, cold, rainy day in Pittsburgh. So Shellye, welcome. We're so excited that you're joining us. Before we chat, we know people know you. There was huge enthusiasm for this chat this afternoon. And for those of you who don't know Shellye is one of Silicon Valley's first female African-American CEOs. She was the former CEO of MetricStream, and at the moment serves on Fortune 500 boards that include Verizon, Nordstrom, Roper Technologies, and Okta. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
You are.
What I'm deeply excited about, though, and I actually did not know this about you, Shellye, there are three things I did not know about you.
Oh, okay.
And the one is that Shellye, in the Harvard Business Case Study, Becoming a CEO, Shellye is the protagonist. So if any of you are looking for strong business cases with female leads, Shellye, that's the case study. So we will definitely be using and looking at that case study. So thank you for sharing that. She is also the aunt of a CMU student. So we're very proud and excited about that. And she runs a gourmet dinner club. And I don't want to get sidetracked because I know I can look at some of the attendees and there are a lot of foodies on this call. And so if time permits, we will get to how this gourmet dinner club runs.
Okay.
So the wonderful things about Shellye, but many of you know her for her book, that's just been released, Unapologetically Ambitious. And I think, Shellye, if how this afternoon is going to unfold, I'm just going to ask a few questions, but please, for all the women joining and the men who are joining, and we see that there are lots of you, please put questions in the Q&A or in the chat. I'll be monitoring that the whole time and sharing those with Shellye. But Shellye, what I was thinking about with this book, I know there has been so much enthusiasm for the name. I think many women feel finally, I can just claim my ambition. I'm relieved to claim it. And we know from a lot of evidence that women start their careers off more ambitious than men, and that dwindles over time. And so I think there's relief in seeing this. But I think my concern, and I know you must have been concerned reading the Women in the Workplace report that came out about 2 weeks ago. And in that, we read that 1 in 4 women at the moment in the States are considering downshifting their careers, and just that it's overwhelming to cope with all the domestic responsibilities, the professional responsibilities, and with deep fear about what's happening in this country and concern for family members. And so before we celebrate Unapologetically Ambitious, how do you advise women to hold on to ambition? Because women, I think, know they have it, but maybe many women on this call are just feeling worn down at the moment. So any advice on how do you hold on to your ambition and how do you sustain your ambition?
Yes, certainly. So first, it's great to be here. I've been looking forward to this as well, Leanna. This is going to be really, anyway, it's going to be really fun. So, yeah, right. Right now, the world's in chaos. I mean, we've got a global pandemic that's health. We've got economic challenges that are going on. We've got racial justice issues that are happening. The whole work environment is going to be completely turned upside down, right? We've got kids not in school. We've got it's chaos.
Yeah.
And what I'll tell you is when chaos is going around you, it's like the world is spinning.
Yeah.
So how do you stay upright? Well, the analogy that I would use here is it's all about focus. So focus what you can control, right? There's a lot of things you can't control, but you have to focus on what you can.
Yeah.
It's really like, you picture, you've seen 3 and 4-year-olds, right? They stand up and they start spinning around because it's fun. And next thing you know, they're kind of rolling. And before you know it, they're flat on their back, right? Typically giggling, but flat on their back. Well, the same will happen to us. We're in a world of chaos or moving. So we need to do what dancers do. What do dancers do? You see a ballerina get up and they spin, 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 and they come out and they move gracefully. They don't fall down because they have a focal point. Their eyes are trained on one spot. They spin, the eyes snap right around, same spot, spin, same spot. So they can spin 100 times and they're not dizzy. Well, the same is true for us in our lives. We have to focus. When all this is happening, focus. Narrow down to what's important professionally, what's important personally, put it together. You're one person, and then prioritize on what really is important. And then take help. Now, you know, and this is the one I really want to emphasize, because what happens a lot, and especially A-type women, you know, we feel that we're responsible for everything. All right. And that feeling of responsibility means we take on everything. Well, we need to take help. And I will tell you, a 5-year-old child knows their colors. 5-year-old child knows their colors. They can separate laundry. Okay. I mean, you're laughing, but I'm telling you, everybody in the household needs to step up and participate, because this is not normal. So nothing is normal. So list out, here are all things that have to be done. And literally everybody in the household take stuff. All right. Now, because you can't possibly do it all. You just can't. So focus on what's important. Figure out how you go get help from existing family members, from kids. I'm telling you, people can help. When I starting at like, I want to say 8, 9 years old in my household, in the summertime, we had to make dinner. We had to make dinner. Now it could be hamburgers, you know, it could be a salad, but we had to make dinner. Kids can make dinner. You don't have to do that. Right. You know, so, and it's dividing and conquering here. And then where you can get help, the average age right now in not the average age, but I think something like I read like 25% of Americans are like 60 years and older. Well, guess what? A big chunk of them are not working full time. So I'm sure you've got people in your network that are friends. I'm sure people might be willing to help. What can they do? They can order groceries for you if that's what you need. I mean, literally, it's thinking outside of the box to say, how can I get help with doing what I'm doing, and stay focused on what's important personally and professionally, but only what's really important, and just let go of the rest. Nobody's judging anybody these days, right? Kids are running back and forth. We're doing the judgment level has come way down. So take advantage of it and just let go of some things.
Thank you, Shellye. I think it's such an important reminder that did strike me in the reports, is I think it's very easy for us to go very doom and gloom around the situation. But what it did measure was this increase in empathy. Is for the first time, we're all seeing the messiness of one another's lives. And so there's a deep understanding for how we're all trying to figure it out. So thank you for that reminder. Thank you. You were talking about focus, and what struck me so much in your book was how focused you were. You knew you wanted to be CEO. You did not deviate from that. And my question is, and we'll talk more about how you got there, but it's a true tale of grit and perseverance. Clearly, you were focused and you were gritty and you persevered. And what to me was interesting recently, we ran a workshop for our students on resilience, and we were talking about grittiness. And what to me, the conversation went in a direction I'd not anticipated, where many of our it was with part-time students, and part-time students were saying, you know what, I'm studying full-time. They're doing an MBA at a school like ours. They're working full-time and they have families. And they were saying, at what point should you not be gritty? In that they know they can be gritty, they know they can persevere, and they know they can keep going. But some of the members of the group were struggling to say, almost at what point should you take your foot off the pedal? Is there a time to go, I'm too gritty and I keep going after something that makes no sense? Did you ever feel that? Because it was such a wonderfully single-minded focus. But did you go through a stage where you're like, being gritty and persevering here is not worth it?
Well, you know, I went through a stage where I questioned whether it was worth it. So that happened, honestly, in my late 20s, Leanne. Here I was already. I got married young, right out of college, got pregnant right away. And so I'm pursuing my career ambitiously. I've got a husband, 2 kids. I just got my first nonprofit board seat. I'm active in the community. Apologies, allergies. And I was exhausted. And but I was even more exhausted,
Yeah.
having trouble developing the energy and, just the excitement, which
Mhm.
was really different for me. And
Yeah.
I realized that I was getting depressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pardon me.
No, no, please take a sip of water. Thank you. I think this is so
Um,
helpful for so many of us to hear. Yeah.
yeah. And then what I realized is I needed help. Something was really wrong because
Yeah.
I'm thinking, is this really worth it? I mean, is
Yeah.
it going to be like this forever?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That I'm just feeling so drained.
Yeah.
And what I learned over the course of those sessions
Yeah.
was I had been giving away all of myself
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
everybody else.
Yeah.
Family, right? Kids, husband, job,
Yeah.
community,
Yeah.
neighbors, friends,
Yeah.
all of it.
Yeah.
And I was doing nothing to refill the tank,
Yeah. Yeah.
nothing to do self-care.
Yeah.
So I learned a really hard lesson.
Mm.
But I'll tell you, it never happened again.
Okay.
So I've always prioritized
Okay.
basic self-care for
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. Could you talk what that looks like, Shellye? What do you do for self-care? Because I think there's such often sort of weird ideas of what self-care is. What does self-care mean to you?
I'm glad you asked because you're right. It's
Yeah.
different for different people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me,
Yeah.
it's exercise,
Yeah.
right? I have to exercise.
Yeah.
And even if I'm busy and I only have 10 minutes, you know what I mean? Then I do something for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But I exercise,
Yeah.
I eat 3 meals a day.
Okay.
And I know that sounds like, well, of course everybody does.
Oh,
No, they don't. And
yeah.
an apple and a granola bar and a bag of chips, that doesn't count.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not a meal.
Yeah.
So even as a CEO, and
Yeah.
just to show you how serious, even as a CEO,
Yeah.
when I didn't have a lunch meeting outside the office, I brought my lunch
Okay.
because I wanted to make sure that I didn't run out of time, right? And suddenly grab something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 3 meals a day. And then the third,
Yeah.
I get my energy from people.
Okay.
So I need to make time to socialize
Yes.
and see people.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And please, if for our participants and attendees, if you have any questions, please put them in the question box or the chat box. We'll be monitoring that. So thank you. So Shellye, if we go to what it took to become CEO, so what's very clear, there are very few successful minority women CEOs or executives in Silicon Valley, and you were successful in that environment. Did you do it differently? How did you do it? How do you achieve what you achieved? How was it different?
I honestly think the biggest difference was my intention.
Yeah.
So a lot of people set goals,
Yeah.
all right? Some people actually take the time to put a plan in place to achieve the goal,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
very few people make decisions every day
Yes.
consistent with their goals.
Yes.
And that's really what made it different for me.
Yeah.
So when I created a plan,
Yeah.
I then assumed that the plan was going to happen.
Yeah.
And it didn't mean it always did, but I
Yeah.
assumed that it would. And what that meant was I made decisions assuming those were the next steps. So let me give you an example, because we're talking to, obviously people at the university, students as well, et cetera. But when I was in college, so my parents said, okay, we will help you with college or we'll help you with wedding. Your choice. I picked college.
Yeah.
But I also knew my goal, if I could, I wanted to get married younger versus older. I wanted to have kids younger versus older.
Yeah.
So what that meant was I was going to need money for a wedding early. So I better start saving money for a wedding.
Yeah.
So literally I was 19 and I'm already socking away money,
Yes.
right? I'm working extra hard the whole bit while I'm going to school for
Yeah.
a wedding.
Yeah.
I had no steady boyfriend. I had no fiance, right? I had none of that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
people thought, people thought I was crazy because I'm
Yeah.
working like crazy, but I have no money to spend. They're like, where's your money? You're working. I said,
And
"I
no
know."
significant other.
Exactly. But let me fast forward.
Yeah.
I got married 3 months after graduation and I paid for my wedding and I didn't have to take out a loan.
Yes.
So I got lucky, right? I mean, I got lucky because I had the money.
Yeah.
You can help yourself become lucky by
Yes.
just saying, if this is what you want to have happen, make decisions that are consistent with it. So when that episode does happen, you're ready.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
ready. And
Yes.
so every step of the way, I wanted to be a CEO
Yeah.
from a young age. So everything I did was, how do I prepare myself? How do I compete? How do I make sure I have the skills to become a CEO every single step of the way?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's what I think it takes, intention.
Yes. And for those of you who want to understand how intentioned and how purposeful, you have to read the book, because I know what we love with our programming on universities, I think it just brings your intention into focus, because you've been committed and you're taking up an enormous amount of your time studying. And so I find what students and the women who join our academy always say is they feel they're more intentional, but I have never seen intentionality as in this book. So for those of you who are interested, please look at that. I'd like to ask some questions from the chat box. And the one is, first of all, Rhonda Fisher, who is our COO, said she loves the definition of self-care, because I think, I know Rhonda has had her hands full taking a school online at the moment.
Yeah.
And then Lisa Perry, is so lovely to see you. And Lisa asks, how do you overcome the imposter syndrome? She's a nonprofit executive director. She's about to be an empty nester, and she wants to know how she can begin to develop her second out without so much fear and apprehension. I know part of me was listening to you. You were so specific at college, and I'm like, but maybe at 19 you have more gumption. And so what to me is interesting with Lisa's comments, maybe at a different stage in life, there's maybe more to lose. So how do you deal with imposter syndrome?
I'm so glad you asked that question, Lisa. And please, I love questions, so throw them out there.
Yeah.
So first of all, I've learned how to deal with imposter syndrome. I have not learned how to overcome it.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
it has been with me my entire life, which
Mhm.
is ridiculous. When I
Mm.
say ridiculous, I mean, look at me. I've
Yes,
been a CEO for 15 years.
you're a rock star.
200 boards, I do it, and I still have imposter syndrome from time to time. The answer
Yeah.
is yes, I do, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Now, when I was writing the book, and I talk about it all through the book, I talk about how to handle imposter syndrome in the book. I talk about what worked, all those things. So feel free, but let me just give you some summary data.
Mhm.
One, because I did some research. Turns out that most people suffer from imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Women more so than men,
Mhm.
and women of color the most.
Yes.
Okay, so with that as a backdrop, what does that tell you?
Mhm.
It tells you that imposter syndrome is environmental,
Yes.
because everybody has it, right? So it's not personal, it's environmental, which means it's not real.
Yes.
Okay, so we have to first tell ourselves it's not real. It's like TV. Looks real, sounds real, it
Yeah.
even feels real, right? You can get scared the whole bit. This
Yeah.
little voice in your head, all those things, absolutely true.
Yeah.
It's not real.
Yes.
Okay, it's environmental.
Yes.
So if you're not able to say, okay, set it aside because of that, then if typically you get it when you are going after something new,
Mhm.
when somebody is offering you a job, a new opportunity, right? Or offering to support something.
Yes.
Well, when that happens, if you can't believe in yourself, believe that person who's giving you this opportunity, believe the person who's trying to hire you, believe the person that's trying to raise you up, right? Into a group or something, believe them.
Yes.
If that still doesn't work,
Yeah.
then I tell people to do what I did. Fake it.
Yeah.
Fake it until you make it. And what does that mean? That means literally, I'll give you a real life example. Late in life, Verizon. All right, so I'm being appointed to the Verizon board, Fortune 15 company, right? I've already been a CEO for over a decade. I've served on public boards for over 8 years.
Mhm.
So I'm solid, right? I got ready to walk into this meeting, and all of a sudden that little voice creeps up and says, "You're not as good as they think you are. What makes you think you can stand toe to toe with the, CEO of Walgreens, or the former Secretary of Transportation, or I mean, you look around the room, right? A little voice, and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Really? You want to slap yourself and say, come on. So what do? Well, take a deep breath and you say, all right, then, shoulders back, head up, and you walk into that room as the Verizon corporate board director, and you act like you know what you're doing until you do,
Yes.
because eventually you will.
Yes.
You always do.
Yeah.
Always do. Now, if you still have trouble setting aside that voice, right?
Mhm.
Get a cheerleader.
Yes.
All right, get a cheerleader. And I mean, really, Leanne, I mean, cheerleader, rah, rah, go, Leanne, go, Lisa, go, Susan, Shellye. It's the person that reminds you
Yeah.
all that you're capable of, all that you've done, how good you are. Because when that voice is talking, you don't remember any of it,
No.
not a thing. So you need somebody to say, hey, wait. you got this, right? If you could do this, you can totally do that. We all need, at least I've needed throughout my life, cheerleaders
Yeah.
to help me all the way through. So if you don't have a cheerleader, go get one.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, Shellye, for putting imposter syndrome in perspective. I know today we actually ran a workshop on imposter syndrome, and it's just this idea, it's not a deficiency in oneself, it's in the water. And so what are strategies
Right.
to deal with it? So thank you very much for that. We have a question, and I think I'm going to say this name wrong, from Chechit. And so I apologize. I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong. And I love it because the question, Shellye, and you'll understand, you've navigated this so much, is what would you recommend when both spouses are driven and very ambitious? Does someone have to yield or give up, delay their ambitions? And I know your whole book is also a negotiation between a couple. You were married for a very long time. And if you could talk to that.
Hmm. Absolutely. So here's the key. I think both people can totally be ambitious,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
you need to spend time talking about what does your collective vision for the future look like?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then what does that mean? And
Mm-hmm.
when I say, what does that mean? So the way I always frame everything that I'm trying to get done
Mm-hmm.
is, what is it that I want to have happen?
Yeah.
What has to be true for it to happen? And then how do I make it true?
Yeah.
So if you're both ambitious, all right, so who knows? Somebody wants to open their own company, somebody else wants to, be managing director, managing partner of a law firm. I'm making it up.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Well, now you need to sit there and talk about it and say, okay, so what needs to be true? Talk about what career steps are needed on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Is mobility required? Do you have to move? Well, what does that mean? How can you both do? I mean, literally talk about things before you embark. So that way, when you come to crossroads and there are decision points, you've already talked through what you're trying to accomplish collectively.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, it's much easier.
Mm-hmm.
And then ask yourself, once you understand what it is you're trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
what has to be true?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if you're not planning to have kids, that's one thing. If you're
Mm-hmm.
planning to have children and you both want to do this, well, that says you're going to need a lot,
Mm-hmm.
underscore lot, capital LOT, lot of support,
Yeah.
which means you better have the financial flexibility to get that support. And you have to decide, what does that support look like, so that you're on the same page. And when does that start, right? And so there's all kinds of
Yeah.
things that you can absolutely do and decide. But the best thing is to talk through, what does that look like?
Yeah.
What has to be true to support it? And then how do we make it true, so that you don't suddenly just stumble into a situation where, okay, you've got an opportunity, I've got an opportunity, we have this, we don't have enough money for support, and somebody's got to move, and all of a sudden it's like this crisis that
Yeah.
you've never
Yeah.
thought about before.
Yeah.
You can actually envision a lot of decision points that may happen.
Yes.
Talk about them
Yeah.
and develop a framework for how you're going to work together.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you. Shellye, there's a question from Kara about, if someone is aspiring to be a CEO, how should they prepare themselves? And I was hoping if you could share as well, you've prepared yourself to be a CEO. And what you also did is you prepared yourself for board engagements. And so perhaps, how is that different? And how did you make both of those work? Because I'm sure, I know a lot of women on this call are interested eventually in boarding engagements as well.
So sure. So if you think about becoming a CEO, the key is, if you have an idea of what industry, what segment, et cetera, the way I did it is I just did the research. I wanted to be a CEO in tech, is what I decided ultimately when I got to college. Yes, CEO, wanted to do it in tech. I then looked around and I decided IBM was the company. That was my first target to be CEO, because it was a big, well-known company. I thought, why not? That's a good one. So then I did the research. And here's the key. You guys, I mean, school, homework doesn't end when you stop taking classes. You do homework all the time. I still do homework. And homework is just the research to get prepared. So
Yeah.
research it. And the good news is it's a whole lot easier for you than it was for me. I was in libraries.
Yeah.
So do the research on, who are the CEOs?
Yeah.
What were their career paths, right? What was their experience? And then look for commonalities, right? You want to find trends that you see, and now build out what you think you need to do. I call it finding the current to power. You want to find out, what are the steps. When I came out of college, I came out of Wharton and I took a sales job selling computers. My friends thought I was crazy. As a matter of fact, I did a session with a guy who was also a Wharton grad. And he said, I don't know a single person in my class who left to do that kind of a job. Exactly. No, they go off to be Wall Street or if international financiers or P&G product managers, all those sexy jobs. And I'm selling computers. Well, I'm selling computers because I'd done the research and every single CEO started out in sales. So when you say, what do you need to do? Go do the research for the kind of CEO you want to be, see what their path is, and then build your plan.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I think as part of that question, I'm concerned at the moment, and I'm sure you're feeling that as you talk about your book, is that we spend with women a lot of time talking about all the things we know we are challenged with, the confidence, the imposter syndrome, how to build your brand. But I feel sometimes we don't talk enough about the technical skills in terms of the financial literacy or the business acumen. Or are there any thoughts you have around that, the sort of technical skills you feel are vital that women should be considering as well?
Definitely. I think financial literacy is a big one. I actually touch on that throughout the book when I talk about trade-offs and figuring out your plan and how you're going to finance and pay for things and all that stuff. So yes, no matter what you want to do, because everything you want to do takes resource.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's time, dollars, whatever, everything takes resource. And therefore you need to be able to understand how to manage your resources so that you can appropriately apply them. And just to this point, Leanne, one of the mistakes I see people make is they set goals, they put a plan in place, and they start executing, but they never align their financial resource plan with their life plan.
Yeah.
And they actually need to be aligned.
Yes.
Because if you're spending and investing in other areas, then you don't have the dollars and the resources to invest in the areas you need to support your plan and your career. So yes, financial literacy, understanding and management is really important. But the key is not only understanding it, but then it's aligning it. That you can make the right trade-offs.
Thank you. If you could share, because I found the stories very touching about the maternity, well, the coat you bought as a student because you knew what was coming. And I think it speaks to this notion of financial literacy and the homes you chose to stay in or the vehicles you chose to drive because of aligning resource with ambition. If you prepared.
Definitely. So, I grew up in a household of very modest means. And so every penny was accounted for. When I say every penny, I mean literally every penny. Everyone in my family on payday got an envelope. And in the envelope was our allowance. And that's all the money we had until next payday. My dad, who worked, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad got an envelope too. So money came in, mom was the money manager. It all got doled out. That was it. So I say that as a background to know I was really very focused, right, on how I spent money and how it works. So I need a new winter coat. And I'm, I don't know, 18 going on 19. I need a new winter coat, sophomore year in college. And how long should a good winter coat last? I'm thinking 6-7 years. All right. Just in terms of the coat itself. So, okay. I go after the outlet, come back, I buy a coat, and I'm showing my roommate and she's like, I said, what do you think? She goes, well, it's nice, but it's not very stylish. And I said, I know. I'd gotten, one of these double button things, but it was a swing coat. All right. So when you swing, the coat flares out a little bit. And I said, I know, as I'm spinning around, I said, because I wanted a coat to wear that I could wear when I was pregnant. And she was like, you're pregnant? I'm not pregnant. No, she said, I said, no. I said, I expect that, if things work out, I want to get married young and I want to have kids right away. So in 6-7 years, I could be pregnant with kids. And she's like, Shellye, you don't even have a steady boyfriend and you're buying a coat for babies? What in the hell? Right? I mean, it's like craziness, right?
Yeah.
But it's true because, again, I put a plan in place and I assume the plan's going to happen. Now, fast forward, I wore that coat when I was pregnant. But more than that, when my husband and I got engaged, we started saving before we got married and planning for childcare. And therefore, childcare was the first line item of the budget before housing, before cars, before food. Here's what we have: childcare, because I want to be CEO one day. So I'm building up my career. He's working too. So how's this going to work? And so we therefore put money aside for a nanny, which was crazy, but we did it. We bought used cars, and usually you graduate from college and you buy a brand new shiny car, right? You got a nice place to live because it's the first time you actually have money, and didn't do any of that, right? Place way out from a commute standpoint, used cars, did the whole bit. dates for the first couple of years were literally pizza and a bottle of wine
Mm.
because
Mm.
we had a nanny.
Yeah.
And it was totally the right call.
Yeah.
But we had the flexibility to be able to do it because we had aligned our finances with our goals, right? And our plan.
Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing that. Thank you, Shellye. Great question from Amanda. So Amanda's asking, how do you suggest handling situations when you're being underestimated by others because you're a woman or you're younger or you're a minority? I'm all three, Amanda says. So how do you recommend she deals with that?
Yeah, Amanda, I was right there with you. So I was the youngest Black executive named, I think, at IBM. So I was always young for the roles that I was taking. And how did I deal with it? I just knew. I knew walking in that people were going to underestimate me. So I didn't bother worrying about that in itself.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that what that meant was I have to prove myself every time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go in and I'd prove myself.
Mm-hmm.
I believed in being a servant leader. So I always focused on how do I help the teams around me be successful? Because if they're successful, I'll be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And that engenders loyalty, support, all those good things as well. And I just went in there and did it. So time and time again, I exceeded expectations. So there is an advantage to for people having lower expectations.
Yeah.
It actually can be a little easier to exceed them. Given that you have time to be able to go execute. So that's what I did. And I'm telling you, it serves you well, because that will continue to happen.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. A question from Debbie, who's also in tech. She's, thank you for being so open. This is great. And she goes on to say, I often mask my ambition because I've so often encountered negativity in response to it. In the tech field, I'm already walking a tightrope between likability and competence. When you're a leader, you can't just toss likability out the window. It's required for the job. Any tips for how to be openly ambitious without triggering negativity from others?
Sure. So, so let me explain my definition, because frankly, women have a narrow path to walk with regards to ambitious, assertive versus being aggressive and dominant and bitchy, right? I mean, and it's this narrow path.
Yeah.
Well, women of color, the path is about this big.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've definitely learned how to navigate that. And the way I do that is I'm not walking around saying, hey, I'm going to be CEO one day, so get in line, right? That's not at all. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Instead, I've always tried to basically create an environment in which people want to help me achieve what it is I'm trying to achieve. So let me give you some examples. I wouldn't early in the career, I learned, don't just tell people you want to be CEO. That's so far up and people don't think that way. They think you're a bit crazy. So I didn't. What I would do is say, okay, next level job's up. So I'd have a conversation that says, one day I really aspire to be a director, right? Or a little bit later, I aspire to be a vice president. I mean, you kind of pick it up. So anyway, but when you have the conversation, you said, one day I aspire to do da 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 da. I'd ask their opinion. Do you think that's a realistic goal for me? All right. Now, why do you ask that question? Now it's risky, right? Because they can come back and say, no, don't see it.
Yeah.
All right. But let's say they do see it. Now that they see it and they tell you they see it, now you've got the perfect opening to say, wonderful. I'd love your advice on what skills you think I need, what blah, blah, do you think I need, whatever. Now what's just happened? Now you've turned that person into a quasi mentor to actually help you get what it is you're trying to achieve. If the answer is, I don't see it, that's also good. And you're looking at me like, what?
Yeah.
The reason it's good is because then you get to say, why not?
Yeah.
Right? Why not? I'd love to understand. And gives them a chance. Now, what is that? Now, when they tell you, oh, because you've never done blah, right? Or you haven't, whatever it is, great. You get out your pad, old fashioned, write it down. Have them see that you're writing it down. Say, thank you. I really appreciate your illuminating a blind spot, right? That I had in my plan. Any suggestions on how I might get this experience, right? Or just, so you can still come back.
Yeah.
But the key is when you're ambitious, all ambitious means, it doesn't mean in your face. I know my title says Unapologetically Ambitious, but I didn't mean it to be okay, so everybody, we're here, we're taking over the world, right? That's not what I meant. What I meant was own your ambition.
Yes.
Own your ambition
Yes.
and be intentional to go achieve it. And
Yes.
now execute a plan to
Yeah.
help you improve the odds to actually go get it.
Yeah.
And I talk about how to do that all throughout the book.
You do. Thank you. Thank you. So we have another question from Al Allen. And she says, Shellye, as a woman of color, I truly appreciate your candor around the challenges that Black women in leadership face. Can you share your experiences with accessibility to mentors of color who you turn to, and share how you mentor young women of color striving for CEO?
Sure. And I'll be candid. In tech, I had a hard time finding mentors of color.
Yeah.
Remember, I came up in the early 80s. Okay. So I'm old. So therefore, you think the numbers are low now, the numbers were minuscule back then. But
Yeah.
but I absolutely found some, especially at IBM.
Yeah.
And when you say, how do you approach people? Again, if you create an environment which people feel that you want their help, I find they're willing to help you. So people that became mentors and supporters of mine over time, whether it was a Barbara Ellis at IBM or a Tim McChristian at IBM, right? Or it was a John Thompson, who's now chair of Microsoft. I met him when he was at IBM. So, absolutely did I find people. But listen, mentors also don't have to be ahead of you. A lot of people think of mentors as I need a mentor who's a couple levels ahead of me so they can help me guide my career on how I move from the next to the next step. Well, one of the biggest values I found are, yes, those mentors are helpful, but finding mentors to help you actually excel at the role that you're in is super helpful because frankly, until you excel at the current job, it's rare to get the next job.
Yeah.
So find people who've done what you've done.
Yeah.
Those are a whole lot easier to find.
Yeah.
And ask them, oh, you've been doing this job, 3 years. I'm brand new to it. What are the key lessons, right? Totally. So mentors can be used in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Thank you. Rachel's asking, oh, she's just got the book and she's just joined the session. She's just excited about what you're sharing. So that's good. Shellye, what I loved is I know many of us on this call get so frustrated by the notion of work-life balance. It's not real. We can't achieve it. And so what I love is you talk a great deal in the book about work-life integration, but you share great examples of what that looks like, because I think we can talk a good game, but we're not sure how that looks like. So if you could share examples, well, first of all, talk about what you mean by work-life integration, and then share just great practical examples of how that played out in your life. That would be great. Thank you.
Definitely. So work-life balance, I hate, H-A-T-E, hate the term. All right. And I hate the term because a balance is a fixed static structure, even on both sides at all times. That's not life. Life does this, right? Life does this. So I believe the term was created just as another reason for us all to feel perpetually guilty. So I totally discard that term. I'm not even trying to do it. What I do believe in, to your point, Leanne, is work-life integration. I'm one person. I don't actually change who I am when I walk through one threshold or walk out of another threshold. I'm the same person. So I take all of my priorities, my work priorities, my life priorities, I put them together and I reprioritize ruthlessly, which means I figure out what can I actually do and what can I? And things I can't do at the bottom, I don't. So either I find somebody else to do them or it just doesn't get done. So work-life integration. And what that also means is I try to figure out how to do multiple things at the same time because time is my most precious commodity. So what does that look like? I do walk and talks, right? So if people want to meet or get together, I'm saying, great, let's take a hike, right? Or let's walk around the block or whatever. I enjoy, and my husband did too, the performing arts. So whenever we went to go see a concert or ballet or whatever it might be, I invited like 30 friends. That way we got a chance to make a big event out of it. We went to go see, we had dinner, right? I'd like to eat out, saw my friends, interacted. So we got multiple things done at the same time. The whole gourmet dinner club that I started when I moved out here, same thing. I sat there and said, what do I like to do? I like to eat. I like to cook. I love to entertain, right? I enjoy people, I like nice wine. I put it all together and said, I'm creating a gourmet dinner club. So in one night, I get to do all of those things, right? So integrate. You don't have to serial thread everything.
Yeah.
Integrate what you're doing.
Thank you. Linked to that, Shellye, is I know you integrate, but I am amazed at what you're able to achieve in 24 hours. And I know we all have the same 24 hours, but it's almost it's almost like you scale companies, you've scaled your life in a sense. Like you've we often talk about optimization problems at Tepper. You've optimized your life in a sense. And so if you could perhaps talk about what it looks like to scale a life.
It means taking help,
Yeah.
so that so it looks like I'm doing everything, but I'm not doing everything
Yeah.
because you can't. You
Yeah.
just can't.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to prove you're the one person in 10 million that can actually do it all,
Yeah.
no, just take help. And when I say take help, it's there's so many different ways that you can take help
Mhm.
for what needs to get done. One of the things, questions that I ask myself when something comes over the transom, right?
Yeah.
Am I the best person to do it?
Yeah.
Am
Yeah.
I the only person that can do it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So what those do is they help you decide whether or not you actually should do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Does it fit within my set of priorities? You have to have filters so that you do what makes sense
Yeah.
for you to do versus just filling up your time. What happens is, and what I learned over time,
Yeah.
is saying yes to one thing is in actuality saying no to something else.
Yes.
You just don't realize it at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So instead of saying a whole bunch of yeses and having unintended no's,
Yeah. Yeah.
be intentional. Back to being intentional. You have one plate. You put
Yeah.
a bunch of things on your plate. You
Yeah.
either actively push off other things or they're just going to fall off and break.
Yeah.
Right? Much better for you to take them off the plate than for to fall off and break.
Yeah.
So think about it as fixed. Your time is super valuable,
Yeah.
and so is the members around you.
Yeah.
So figure out, how to do that. And by the way, I hate saying no.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
one of the hardest things for me to do is to actually say no, because I really do try to be helpful. So
Yes.
one of the things that I do just to share with others who have trouble saying no
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
if I can't do something, I at least try to refer to somebody that might be helpful,
Yeah.
right? So I just got one this morning. They interested in me to participate in this project. And I responded back and said, I'm sorry, I don't have bandwidth, but here are 3 other people that may be potential candidates, right? In response
Yeah.
back, I got, oh, totally understand. And thank you so much.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think what's interesting is, as I said, we run the Leadership and Negotiation Academy, and Professor Linda Babcock's part of that. And she actually runs a Just Say No club, because I think so many of us are really bad, and it's hard to say no to good things. I think we learn we've been trained to say no to things that maybe, to your point, we've got to give up, but I think these are ambitious women who have so many opportunities. It's hard to say no to good things. And so thank you for reminding us. It goes back to what is your intention. Talking about the Negotiation Academy, could you share, I know we have some of the alums on this call, what is one of the toughest negotiations you've had in your career, if you don't mind sharing, and how you approached it?
Oh gosh. So I'd say there's probably 2, but if you only want me to do one, I can do one.
No, I'd love to do
I
2.
do-
I think everyone loves, I think we all struggle with negotiation. We'd love to hear
Okay.
what you say. Yeah.
So the first one was the negotiation on the CEO role.
Okay.
So here I am. I mean, my whole life, I just told you, I've been working towards the CEO spot.
Mhm.
So I'm now 40 years old and I have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Now it was in the key investor was Kleiner Perkins, a venture capital firm, and the partner's name is Vinod Khosla. And Vinod, while super talented, he built amazing companies, created lots of value for investors, et cetera. But he was also known to be very to be hard, to be hard to work for. He
Yeah.
could be very demanding, right? Could whipsaw companies. He traded out a lot of CEOs. You come get the job, a couple of years, you're out, new person's in, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm thinking like, okay, so I'd done all this work and I knew he was going to make me the offer. So I'm sitting there in the meeting with him. He makes me the offer. And I said to him, Vinod, I just have one question before I answer.
Mhm.
And I said, you have a reputation for, and I gave him all the positives. And then I said, but you also have a reputation for being very forceful and indeed whipsawing companies at times. So
Mhm.
I just need to know, are you hiring me to be
Mhm.
the CEO of the company and
Mhm.
run the business as I think it should be run?
Mhm.
Or are you hiring me to implement your vision and strategy for the company?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, when you said that was really easy for me to tell all of you.
No, no.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
right? I am sitting there.
Yes.
Literally, it was
Yeah.
one of those things where you take the deep breath. It's like, I've got to
Yeah.
ask,
Oh,
I've got to
I'm
ask
gonna
it. No,
blow this.
oh, absolutely. Because worst case,
Yeah.
he's like says, fine, I don't even want you in the CEO job,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Which could
Yeah.
happen. So
Totally.
anyway, so I asked the question and there's silence for 1 beat, 2 beats, 3 beats. I'm like, oh my God, right? And then he finally says, I know I'm forceful. I know I have strong opinions.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, I hire CEOs to run the company.
Okay.
And I said, okay. And I accepted the job.
Great. Wonderful.
And there were a few times during my tenure, which, oh, by the way, I was the longest lasting CEO of a Vinode company where he was on
Congratulations.
the board. Thank you. But I think it's because we had that conversation up front,
Yeah.
right? And so I knew my power. I knew
Yes.
my power.
Yeah.
The other one was I was in Dallas, Texas, and I'm interviewing for a job in Silicon Valley to
Yeah.
get finally to the Valley to be able to get the CEO job that I want. This one is not a CEO job. It's an EVP of sales job. All right.
Yeah.
And I know they're now in the process where they really like me. They want to make me the offer. I know it's coming. And I said to them, how are you measuring success? Which, oh, by the way, for everybody listening, I'm amazed at how few people ask future employers or future bosses what the measure of success will be.
Yeah.
The measure of success is almost always not in the job description.
Yes.
All right. So always ask that question. Anyway, so the CEO is female, comes back and says, well, we need to grow the business, reduce our cost of sale. We want to improve our customer satisfaction, and we've got to move fast.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I said to her, well, in that case, I need to run marketing as well as sales,
Okay.
right? But I didn't just say, give me marketing. What I
No.
said was, if this is what you're trying to achieve,
Yeah.
marketing represents half of your cost of sale,
Yeah.
typically. So I need both to be able to optimize to deliver what you want, right?
Yeah.
So they did. They weren't planning to. They had a whole department, right?
Yeah.
Here was the last one, last negotiation. I said, you said you want me to come and get started fast on the ground, times of the essence.
Yeah.
So I'd like you to actually hire my assistant.
Good one.
All right. Because I want to be up to
Yeah.
speed quickly. She knows everything, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, she's here in Texas with me. So I need you to move her and her family to California, as well as me and my family.
Wow.
They
Fabulous.
did all of that. They
That's
did all of that.
Yeah, yeah. Shellye, thank you. I think so often with negotiation, we always think in terms of money, like, oh, how did you negotiate money? But what both these examples showed, and I think it's so important, is you really have to negotiate the factors that are going to allow you to be successful. And that to me is exactly what you did, because we know so often women are often offered senior positions. I mean, we call them glass cliffs. They troubled. You had a lot of turnaround positions in your environment and to be successful. But even the more reason why you've got to negotiate what's going to allow you to be successful, because you're already in a challenging situation.
For sure. Absolutely, for sure.
Thank you for sharing that. So we've spoken a lot about success, and my worry is I don't want everyone to feel like, oh, we can't be Shellye. So if you don't mind, could you share a failure? Do you have a biggest failure? I know we actually run failure labs with our students because we know successful entrepreneurs really need to learn to fail, and we need to get really comfortable with failing. But I'm curious if you're comfortable sharing a failure with us.
Oh, of course. Gosh, it's just what stage of career. So,
and Lisa just asked us as well. She said, how do you fail successfully?
yeah, there you go.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, in general, having a failure does not equal being a failure.
Yeah.
What defines whether or not you are a failure is how you handled the failure. Yeah. So failures are all about learning from them and not making the same mistake and the same fail twice. Yeah. So examples. So I'll tell you, here I am at IBM, and I have decided that I really don't think I'm going to get the shot to actually compete for a CEO job at IBM. Okay. So I said, all right, I still want to be CEO. So I've I failed, right? Because I didn't achieve my objective. You didn't hear in my resume that I was ever CEO of IBM. I didn't make it,
Yeah.
right? But then I did a double dip because I said, all right, I want to go and be CEO of now a smaller company. I've done big, right? So let me take what I've learned and go build something. But the research says that people who do tend to stumble a time or two because it's so different.
Yes.
As a woman and a woman of color, I don't think I get as many strikes at bat. So I have to improve my odds. So I said, all right, let me go get seat at the table job, 1 or 2, and then I'll go after my CEO job.
Okay.
Well, the perfect opportunity I thought came up.
Yeah.
Blockbuster. Some of you may remember Blockbuster.
Yes.
They were like a behemoth in the late 90s. So this is in 1998.
Yeah.
And they had the job opening to be president of Blockbuster.com.
Wow.
So I wanted to hire somebody to build a whole division on, .com and how do we get, movies and videos, initially just available to be shown and bought on the web, but eventually streaming and the whole bit, right? Wonderful. I thought it was a perfect opportunity to go and basically learn how to build something, but still under the umbrella of a big company, right? Perfect transition. Well, I get there, and within 7, 8 months, it becomes very clear that Blockbuster does not have the vision.
Okay. Yeah.
Whoa, I have just left IBM.
Mm.
I just moved my family from Japan, which is where we were, to Dallas, Texas. My daughter is now in her first year of high school, son's in elementary school, right? We've just acclimated to getting engaged in Dallas, and this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And I'm in Dallas.
Mm.
Dallas doesn't have a whole lot of tech stuff back then, right? This is late 90s.
Yes.
So that was a little short-sighted on my part in terms of backup plan. So I'm like, okay, I still want to be CEO. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
That's when I said I have to get to Silicon Valley.
Okay.
But wait a minute, my family just settled, right? I mean, they've been super supportive, but a double bump.
Yeah.
So I paid the price.
Yeah.
I actually commuted for 3 years
Yeah.
while my family stayed in Dallas. So our daughter could graduate from high school in one school. So yeah, that was definitely a failure, misstep on my part. And we paid a big price personally, as well as the family, to do it. But you know what? We lived through it.
Wonderful.
Right. And we recovered, and she graduated and did well. Right. And I got the CEO job, and so it all worked out.
Yeah.
But a failure does not have to define you.
No,
The key is
no.
to learn from it
Yes.
as you go forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shellye. Thank you. So we are almost at time, and I thank you so much. I'm looking at the comments, and I know it's been a very rich and inspiring conversation. I'm feeling all pumped. I want to go and jog or something. But Shellye, just as we finish, what is the one thing you hope those who are listening take from this conversation? If there is one thing, it's, you've given of our time, they've committed their time. We know how you think about time. If we're intentional, what do we take from this? If you can.
I guess my number one takeaway that I hope you walk away with is the importance of being intentional. And what that means is you need to own your career.
Yeah.
You need to own your career. Your boss doesn't own it. Your spouse, doesn't own it. Mentors, friends, nobody owns it but you. So be intentional with what you're going to do with it.
Yeah.
You would never spend $2,000-$3,000 on an airline ticket. Pack your bags, put the dog in the kennel, make sure everything's taken care of, mail hold, do all that stuff, right? Get to the airport, strap yourself into the seatbelt on the plane, ready to go, and then look at the pilot and say, so where are we going anyway?
Lovely analogy. Yeah.
Would never do that. But we do it all the time with our careers. We spend tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on formal education, on training, on workshops, on conferences, on all these things, right? To help us be better and get better. And then we sit back at our jobs and we wait until somebody taps us, go do the next thing, or to get a different experience, right? We put our heads down, we work, and we wait to be, what?
Yeah.
That's a terrible ROI, right? Come on, you just invested all this in yourself. Be intentional about what you want to do, about skills you want to build, about experiences you want to have, and let people know what those are so they can actually help you get them. So please, I implore you, take ownership of your career and, get the book. It tells you how to do that and how to do that in an effective way.
Yeah. Wonderful. Shellye, thank you so much. Thank you. This was exactly the light I think many of us needed after a long week. So I thank you very much. I wish everyone here and you a very happy weekend. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate everyone's questions and interaction. And if there's anything that I said that was inspiring or helpful, etc., the help I would ask for, tell the universe what you want.
I should have asked. Yeah.
That's okay. Is just please, if you would tell people about the book. I mean, trust me, trying to market a book during COVID is really hard. If you are, and I have one here too, but if you are active on any social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever, please just post a picture, make a little note. Hey, I heard Shellye, right? She's doing this, etc., and tag me. I'll be happy to respond. But please, I really would appreciate the help because this is hard. This is so hard.
Thank you. I do not doubt that's exactly what we're all going to go and do now. So thank you very much. Thank you, Shellye. Thank you very much, CJ, for your support. And we thank all the attendees for joining us this afternoon. Have a good weekend.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.